What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports to Hine Show. Today is September 28th, 2021, and on today's episode, I have a new guest joining me. I have Kenny, the sports guy. How you doing today, Kenny?
How you doing, man? Thank you for letting me be on the show.
Really glad you can join the show today. We have a lot to talk about. You're a big New York Jets fan. You're a big wrestling fan, which is very, very beneficial because it's kind of hard to find wrestling fans nowadays, it seems like. But before we kind of start talking about topics and different things like that, can you kind of tell some of the listeners a little about your podcast and everything?
Sure. This is Kenny the Kenny the Sports Guy, and I have a podcast called Kenny the Sports Guy Podcast. You can catch me on my website, www.kenthesportsguy.com. Ken with two N's. I cover MLB, NBA, AEW, WWE, and the NFL. And I've been doing it for, a year and a half now, and I have enjoyed it throughout this whole entire time. And if you want to catch some of my episodes, catch me on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. This is Kenny, the Sports Guy.
Now, I'll definitely put that in the description below. And that's really cool. It's kind of similar to when I started as well. We kind of talked about before the show and everything. Yeah. And like I mentioned, you're a big wrestling fan. And last week was probably you can make a case, maybe one of the top ones, or maybe the top ever episode of AEW Dynamite. It was AEW Dynamite Grand Slam. Yeah. Bryan Danielson against Kenny Omega. And they also had, CM Punk's first match and Jericho, some other matches that were on Rampage as well. You were actually able to go to that, which is really, really, really cool. Can you kind of talk about, what that was like going there and your experience going to AEW Dynamite Grand Slam and everything like that?
Sure. Well, I can tell you it's a lot different than WWE. It just feels like when I entered Off the Ash Stadium, it just kind of dawned on me that this is not a WWE event. It was more of a AEW event where there was so much positivity in the air. The atmosphere was just amazing. What can I say, man? If I have to choose between a WWE event or a AEW event, I would have to go to AEW because the atmosphere of it, the match card was entirely crazy. I mean, the fans are there are just, oh man, it's better than WWE actually. But let's talk about the card. The card, oh man, it just feels like, they put out a pay-per-view card on free television, which is unheard of in today's society. And the Kenny Omega versus Daniel Bryan match was just, oh man, that was just stuff of legends. And that was probably the best match I have ever saw because every aspect of that match was just beautifully choreographed. Like Daniel Bryan's first match was, he has a loss of beat since the last WrestleMania he wrestled at. Kenny Omega is like a god in professional wrestling, and I actually do believe that. I just feel like that event might have been the best event I have ever been to since I think the last WrestleMania. And MJF, I know MJF got booed heavily during that time. Yeah, it was just an amazing, amazing event, and I'm really hoping that it comes back to New York City pretty soon.
Yeah, no, I was able to go to an AEW event a couple of years ago. I think it was the fifth episode of Dynamite, one of the very first ones. Yeah, like you said, it is just a different atmosphere going to an AEW event into a WWE event. Like it is, it's hard to describe, but it's just so completely different. I feel like, WWE, I think you go there and it's kind of like you expect maybe a good match, maybe two, but that honestly might be kind of pushing it. But going there, it's going to be more of the entertaining aspect.
Correct.
And then with AEW, I know it might sound kind of weird, but it's kind of like going to a football game. The way how hype it is, just going there and stuff, the possibilities, how great it can be with the great matches. There was a one. It was Omega and the Young Bucks against Hybrid 2 and Kip Sabian. I think something like that.
Yeah.
That match, you expect it to be decent, but that was definitely the best match I've ever seen. In person. I think the main event of that was. I think they actually crowned the first AEW tag team titles that night with SCU defeating the Lucha Brothers. Mm-hmm. That match was really good.
That was a good match, by the way.
Yeah, it was really, really good. And you look at, AEW, it's just like I feel like it's kind of hard at times talking about AEW and not bashing WWE because WWE the past 2 weeks has been improving on Raw, it seems like. Mm-hmm. But with AEW, it's like they understand the fans and like going there, it's like you get a full experience. Like when I went there, obviously they're not probably having it now because with the coronavirus, still happening and everything. Mm-hmm. But you had the chance to. It was Private Party, Britt Baker, and the Young Bucks. If you paid like $50 to meet, you can meet one of them. I mean, with WWE, it's like $150 to meet like 2 people. Like, there's so much stuff with like going to an AEW event that is just so much different and so much compelling and interesting. And it's just much more, fun going to an AEW event opposed to going to a WWE event to me.
It's funny that you mentioned meet and greets because they had a meet and greet before the event. It was, I think, the Lucha Brothers, Rudy Soho, Adam Cole, and I forgot the other person, but Adam Cole was $75 to meet him, and Rudy Soho was $50. And I don't mind shelling out $75 for meeting Adam Cole because he's a star, and I feel like he's gonna be big in AEW. And in the contrast to WWE, you have to pay $150 just to meet Charlotte Flair. And I feel like, why would I pay $150? I could just meet her off the street for free,
Exactly. I've even had that kind of situation happen before going to a WWE event. I've met, looking at the WWE, wrestlers, I would say that Natalya and Ziggler are some of the more nicer, wrestlers in WWE. I've been able a chance to meet both of them, and it's like before events, it's like you meet them heading into the arena, it costs nothing. You meet them in the arena, it costs you $150. It's crazy, and I don't get why anybody would do it. And even like I think it was last year, with SummerSlam, they had a meet and greet with some wrestlers who weren't even that big. And it was $200. And it's like,
yeah, exactly.
It makes absolutely no sense at all to me.
And also, like, we couldn't meet them in person due to the coronavirus pandemic, but they would have these virtual meet and greets where you spend 2 minutes with them and they charge you $150, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I just don't get that, and I feel like I really, really hope AEW comes back here because that was definitely, I went to a episode of Raw several years ago when they still had Jericho and Owens, and it was the episode where they lifted Jericho up into like a shark tank. It was like one of the Christmas episodes or something like that, and that one was really fun. But the AEW one, it just seemed special and much more. It was like more entertaining, but in the fact like. Entertainment as in not some stupid funny storyline. Entertaining is like such a great match you're watching type of deal, something you don't really see when you go to a WWE event. I've been to several house shows and there's maybe when one decent pretty good match. Aside from that, it's just like the entertaining aspect but not really in a good way going to a WWE event.
Well, here's the thing. When I went to Dynamite last week, I noticed like there was no promos at all. None. It was just only 1 or 2 short promos, like 15 seconds. Like, for example, there was a segment that didn't air on TV where Taz was talking about CM Punk and the upcoming match with Powerhouse Hobbs and CM Punk. And that 15 seconds basically got the point across. And I feel like with WWE, you don't need like a 15-minute promo just to promote a storyline. All you need is like 30 to a minute.
And you make a great point because it's every single episode of Raw, every single episode for SmackDown for the most point
Mm-hmm.
SmackDown's 2 hours, Raw's 3 hours, but the first
Yeah.
15 to 20 minutes, it's just crappy promos that are so scripted. And, when I went to Raw, it was entertaining because it was Jericho and Owens, and they, at the time, I mean, they were the best thing in the WWE, hands down. But, the first 20 minutes was, them talking. I don't mind Jericho and Owens talking. I like Owens quite a bit. Jericho is one of my, favorites. But if it was anybody else talking for 20 minutes, I mean, it'd just be horrible. And it goes to show, like, they aren't changing it. And like I said earlier, AEW is kind of like, knows what the fans want. They don't want to hear these 20-minute promos. They want to see a 20-minute match with like Omega and Bryan Danielson instead.
So before the week before AEW Dynamite, I actually went to SmackDown at Madison Square Garden, and believe it or not, there were a lot of empty seats. Like for a sold out event, there were a lot of empty seats. I don't know if it was in part due to the New York City vaccination requirements of indoor events, but it was pretty shocking to see like the Garden almost empty. And during that SmackDown, there was only like 3 matches, and the rest were like promos. And to be honest, I got a little bit bored of it.
Well, was that the episode of SmackDown? It was kind of like the 9/11 type themed episode.
The day before 9/11.
Yeah, I saw the crowd of that. I mean, the crowd was absolutely, crazy. They were super loud. But I mean, like you just said, I mean, there was empty seats, and it's weird because it's like you see Raw and it'll be a loud crowd, but the camera pans to the crowd, the majority of the crowd on one side. You look at the other side, half the seats are just empty, and it's crazy because even though WWE has not been good for years, they've been improving recently. But like they are the top wrestling promotion. I prefer AEW, but it's right now it's not close as in overall like worldwide recognition. WWE is always going to be on top, and it's crazy that despite the better overall, with Cena returning, Lesnar, Goldberg, Reigns has been the top of WWE for over a year. You're still getting maybe a fourth of the seats in your arena empty, and it's just crazy that. Not even necessarily, WWE. I feel like the overall aspect of pro wrestling is slowly dying. I feel like 20 years ago, the ratings for, Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite would be doubled right now, if not tripled. And I mean, you look at the ratings from 20 years ago, it was through the roof. But now wrestling has just not been, what it was 20, 25 years ago. So people aren't really watching it. And you're going to see these viewerships, regardless how good it is, slowly decrease as the years go by.
Yeah, I agree. When I went to SmackDown, it just felt like a whole different animal. I mean, it felt like going from a pig to AEW with a lion. I mean, I feel like when I was in AEW, there was only one section of the arena where it was walled off due to like obstructive views, and every seat was just filled. So AEW said only 20,000 people show up there, and I can imagine why, because this is like the first time they actually debuted during NYC, and it was just an amazing experience. And I really do enjoy it, and I hope they come out to New York City pretty soon.
Yeah, if they go back to New York, obviously, if they do, it'll probably be a stacked show comparable to what it was, with Dynamite Grand Slam. And there was lots of rumors last week, with him maybe showing up to AEW. There's lots of rumors this week, but it's very interesting because I don't really follow WWE a ton. I kind of know what's going on, but I did not watch the pay-per-view on Sunday, but I know the ending was very odd, and kind of there's rumors that the Fiend, which is Bray Wyatt, might return to WWE, but there's tons of rumors of him possibly going to AEW. What are your thoughts on the whole Bray Wyatt possibly returning to WWE or signing with AEW?
Ooh, that's really a tough one to say because for the last 2 days he posted on his his Twitter account a photo of him in a match with Daniel Bryan and the Usos, along with the late and great Brody Lee and Rowan, and that kind of caught everybody off guard because they don't know if he's gonna go back to WWE or he's gonna sign with AEW. In my personal opinion, I feel like he's gonna sign with AEW because that's actually the perfect place for him to flourish. And AEW tomorrow is actually taking place in Rochester, New York, home of Brody Lee. And I can't think of another way to honor the memory of Brody Lee than Bray Wyatt, coming to AEW. My only concern is I just hope that he doesn't get buried in a card because there is a lot of wrestlers that's vying for the top spot in AEW, and AEW can only do so much with the wrestlers, and I just hope he doesn't get buried.
And it's interesting to me. I feel like this is much more intriguing compared to Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson, Moxley, Jericho, all those guys. Because you look at Bray Wyatt, he is hands down one of the worst in-ring performers in my opinion. And during his time,
I wouldn't say that. I mean, there's plenty of that.
I think he's, out of those guys I mentioned, I would not including Jericho because, it seems like he's getting worse each week in the ring. But, Wyatt is not one of those guys who kind of fits the AEW mold in the fact, great wrestling and stuff like that, great matches. We haven't really seen that often from Bray Wyatt. And the way Bray Wyatt is, he's much more in that WWE category in the entertaining aspect, like I mentioned. Bray Wyatt's not going to wow you with his matches, but with his, charisma and his character, The Fiend, for the past year or so, I haven't watched WWE much, but the only things I've really watched, were, The Fiend promos because, it's just very interesting with him and Alexa Bliss and much more intriguing than any other character, in my opinion, on Raw the past year or so. And it's interesting because, the characters and the potential he has is really unlimited. But WWE just really failed with Bray Wyatt. It really, really shocked me once they ended up releasing him. But it's very interesting because the ending with Extreme Rules was just odd. Maybe,
yeah, it was.
And maybe, they at the potential, the Fiend could return. But also another thing, I don't get why WWE is continuing this just stupid character with Alexa Bliss. I heard there was a rumor that Alexa Bliss is going to take time off WWE, and part of me feels like despite, even though Bray Wyatt is released, but Alexa Bliss is still in this character, kind of similar to what she was with Bray Wyatt. Maybe they're doing it for a certain reason, and they're going to have, when she comes back, maybe the Fiend come back. But you made a great point about where AEW is going to be tomorrow and Dynamite is Rochester, where Brody Lee was from. Great point there. I feel like if Bray Wyatt would go to AEW, it will be tomorrow. If he doesn't go to AEW tomorrow, then all of a sudden I think there's a decent, strong possibility he might end up re-signing with WWE.
I agree. And to backtrack with Alexa Bliss, she's actually getting married. I think that's the reason why she's taking time off for the wedding and stuff like that. But I feel like if he does return to WWE, I think it will be with Alexa Bliss because that ending to her Charlotte Flair match was just, I wouldn't say bad, but it was just dragged on a lot. It dragged on. That's how I feel.
I didn't see that match, but going back to WrestleMania, like the Fiend against Orton and Randy Orton, and then Alexa Bliss, kind of costing him the match. That was kind of like just a downfall. You had so much potential of this Alexa Bliss and the Fiend pairing, and obviously it seems like the Randy Orton feud kind of lasted maybe longer than it should have, and people were starting to get stale of the Fiend, even though he's one of the most intriguing characters in the WWE. But it's like I just don't understand how you do not have a great storyline. I don't get how you can't keep the same character of Bray Wyatt, because the Fiend was much more intriguing than any other Bray Wyatt they've had, in my opinion. And with Alexa Bliss, I don't know. It's interesting because when she comes back, if she's still in that character and Bray Wyatt has yet to appear, I think it's almost a guarantee that you would see Bray Wyatt back in a WWE ring. But it's interesting because this is much different than any other kind of free agent signing with AEW and WWE we've seen in quite some time.
So, do you think Alexa Bliss stole the gimmick for The Fiend?
I don't know if she would steal it, but I feel like
WWE did.
I feel like she's purposely staying in that character for him to eventually return, type of deal. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like I said, I do not keep up with WWE a ton to tell you a ton about it, but I just feel like, why would they continue to have this sucky character with Alexa Bliss if it's not going to lead to something bigger in the future, in my opinion?
I mean, I was a fan of her character, but the Extreme Rules match just ruined it for me. And a lot of people want her to become the goddess back, her previous character, which I think will happen. But I think, to me, it's going to happen based on what Bray Wyatt does. I mean, if he goes to AEW, she's going to return back to the goddess. But if Bray Wyatt goes back to WWE, she's going to join Bray Wyatt again.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. This is one of the more just unknown, really, free agent signings we've seen in a while. CM Punk, we kind of knew that weeks before he debuted. Adam Cole, you kind of had an idea, but it wasn't official. Bryan Danielson, you knew weeks before. And, John Moxley, years ago, he kind of teased, in his video that he was going to go to AEW. Bray Wyatt, you just don't really know. And, we kind of mentioned with wrestling earlier, it was in New York and a, very, very nice show. Also in New York, not really a great showing so far, is the New York Jets, your favorite team, and, Zach Wilson. What are your thoughts on Zach Wilson's early struggles with the New York Jets?
Well, first of all, he's still a rookie, number one, and we're only 3 games into the season, and there's going to be a lot of growing pains with Zach Wilson. I mean, like I said, he's a rookie. I feel like he's throwing the ball really well, but it just feels like he's not going to be a bust. But a lot of people will say he's a bust because based on the way he's playing right now. But I feel like he's going to be well. He's going to do well. He's just got to work out the kinks, get a sync with receivers, and for the love of God, get him an offensive line, because I feel like he's running for his life every time he gets handed the ball. I feel like the wide receivers need to step up as well. And Zach Wilson needs to stop throwing to Dave Brown, because that's his security blanket. And I feel like other players need to step up. The defense for the Jets has been playing well, but it's just the offense. I mean, I love Robert Saleh. I think he's going to be a good coach. But unfortunately, there's going to be growing pains within the organization. And I feel like the Jets are going to do bad this season, but the future is bright.
Zach Wilson, to me, I feel like this is what happens when you play in a New York media. It's 3 games. It was 2 games. It was 1 game, and people were already calling Zach Wilson a bust, which to me is laughable. It's so stupid. Zach Wilson, in my opinion, was my quarterback number 1 in the draft. I liked him more than Trevor Lawrence. He was maybe my favorite player in the draft. If not, it was Kyle Pitts. But, Wilson has so much potential. But when his offensive line is horrendous, with Becton getting hurt, it just made the offensive line worse.
Exactly.
The wide receivers aren't stepping up as they should. And you look at this, Jets wide receiver core, it's not bad. I mean, you look at, Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims. Those are some younger wide receivers who have potential to be a big part of the Jets' future with Zach Wilson. I mean, you look at Wilson's, in 3 games, he has 2 touchdowns, 7 picks. He has 628 passing yards. His completion percentage is 55.2. But you look at the sacks. The sacks is 15 times. That's 5 a game. And with the 17-game schedule now, that's on pace for 85 sacks in the season, potentially killing the sack record years ago, I believe, by the Houston Texans. I mean, this is absolutely when the Jets, picked Wilson and they picked the wide receivers, in the offseason, I thought the Jets were a team who weren't going to win a ton of games. I was kind of thinking in the 4 or 5 range, but I really felt like they were going to compete with some of these better teams. And I would not be surprised, if they were capable of pulling off an upset, maybe against the Dolphins, or maybe even, shocking a major upset against the Bills. Because I really feel like the Jets have potential to be a really nice team in the future. But to me, I'm starting to get nervous about Zach Wilson, because this has reminded me a lot, with my favorite team, the Bengals, last year, and Burrow. I don't want to see Wilson get hurt, because, if he does, obviously they're going to probably have the number 1 pick overall. They'll have to get some linemen then, but it's just like they do not have as good a roster as people think. Mm-hmm. The players that are good, that people don't think are good, are just not stepping up. And even in the interview the other day, I don't remember the offensive lineman's name, but he was kind of like calling out Wilson that he needs to throw the ball away, which to me, I don't disagree with that at times, but you watch the film, he's running for his life every play. 15 sacks in 3 games, but you go back and watch it. Look at how many pressures and how many nearly sacks he's had, because he's one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. He escapes at least 2 or 3 different sacks a game. It's crazy to me, and I know he's not played good. I'm not going to say he hasn't. I'm not going to say he's played good, because he hasn't, but he's had no talent around him to help him. But I was telling somebody the other day, I'm just – I'm not even a Jets fan, but I'm getting sick and tired of the Zach Wilson hate. It's really aggravating, and it's really unnecessary. We're 3 games in.
Exactly. I'm tired of the hate.
And for an example, let's take Peyton Manning for an example. Peyton Manning would not survive in today's NFL after his rookie season. He had around 30 picks his rookie year. I don't think he'd be a starting quarterback his second year. It seems like in today's NFL, if you don't have a great rookie year, you're out of the window. Tua Tagovailoa, I'm not a fan of him, but he wasn't horrible last year. But some fans are already saying that they need to get a new quarterback. Same thing with, Jalen Hurts and, some other players as well. Just a couple of years ago, we saw Josh Rosen, and the following year, he wasn't even on the Arizona Cardinals roster.
Yeah, he was traded.
It's crazy. Traded to the Miami Dolphins. And I just do not understand the hate, because honestly, out of all those quarterbacks I just mentioned, I think Zach Wilson easily has the most, obviously not including Manning, but obviously, the quarterbacks I mentioned, I feel like Zach Wilson, obviously, in my opinion, has the most potential out of those guys I just mentioned. He's one of the best draft quarterback prospects I've seen in a very, very, very long time.
So what do you think about Trevor Lawrence?
That's my next topic, and I'm getting sick and tired of the Zach Wilson hate, but no hate for Trevor Lawrence. Okay, Trevor Lawrence has 40 more passing yards. And, he has DJ Chark, which I think is a very underrated wide receiver. He has Marvin Jones. He has James Robinson he can pass to in the backfield as well. And you look at it, if you look at their rosters when healthy, I'm going to take the Jets over the Jaguars.
I agree.
Right now, the Jets' offensive line is the worst in the NFL, and it's not even possibly debatable. The wide receivers are not stepping up. The Jets have a much better wide receiver core, but I would take the Jaguars right now, because the Jets wide receiver core just isn't stepping up, in my opinion. And you look at this, and like I said, he's thrown for about 40 more passing yards. He has 5 touchdowns, 3 more than Wilson, but they have the same as interceptions, 7. He has a worse completion percentage with a much, 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 much better offensive line. 15 sacks in 3 games for Wilson, just 5 sacks in 3 games for Trevor Lawrence. And you look at, Zach Wilson, the team he's played. He's played a 3-0 Carolina Panthers team, who, in my opinion, is not a joke. They are a serious playoff contender. They've played a 3-0 Denver Broncos team, even though the Broncos, they're 3-0. They have not really played good teams. And they've also played the Patriots, who are 1-2, maybe not as good as people thought. But you look at Bill Belichick. He's 22-6 against rookie head coaches. Like, Belichick it's very hard to beat Belichick when you're a rookie, rookie quarterback. 22-6 going up against rookie quarterbacks. It's very difficult to beat Belichick when you're a rookie quarterback. And to me, you look at Trevor Lawrence. He threw 3 or 4 interceptions against the freaking Houston Texans defense.
Yeah, that was bad.
Exactly.
That was bad.
But, he loses to the Houston Texans in week 1 when nobody expected the Texans to win. I picked heading into the year that the Texans had a legitimate chance of going 0-17. I mean, that Lawrence throws multiple picks against Houston. Wilson struggles against Carolina, who is a playoff contender, but you hear about Wilson struggling, not Trevor Lawrence. This goes back to top market teams and small market teams. And it's very weird because, with the Jets, I mean, you could say you like dogs more than cats, but by the end of the day, people are going to criticize you for liking dogs more than cats if you're a New York team. With, Jacksonville, Detroit, Cincinnati, these small market teams, unless you do something huge, nobody's going to, start talking about you. And it makes me mad because to me, I think Zach Wilson is better than Trevor Lawrence. I've said it for over half a year now. But Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be this golden boy. He was this golden boy in college football. He's the best quarterback prospect of all time.
Yep.
The BS narrative that he's better than Joe Burrow, the BS narrative that he's better than Justin Herbert as a quarterback prospect, which is funny because he wasn't even a better quarterback prospect than Zach Wilson this year. And it's funny. I mean, you're the New York Jets fan, of us talking, but I'm getting fired up kind of defending Zach Wilson. I mean, I'm just – it makes me so mad when Lawrence is supposed to be this, next mobile Peyton Manning, when he's playing worse than Zach Wilson, the supposedly, already bust. It makes absolutely no sense. I'm tired of all the Zach Wilson hate. Put the Zach Wilson hate and put it on Trevor Lawrence, because we want to see how horrible Trevor Lawrence has been so far Thursday night when he throws at least 2 picks against the Cincinnati Bengals defense on Thursday Night Football.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like Zach Wilson's going to win. He's not going to win Rookie of the Year this year, obviously, but he's going to have a better career than Trevor Lawrence. I feel what the problem with Lawrence is the head coach down in Jacksonville. I think Urban Meyer is too raw for the NFL. I'm kind of worried about his health issues because he has a history of, having health issues. That's why he resigned from Ohio State. But I just feel like Lawrence has the tools necessary. I mean, you're right. I agree with you with the part that Wilson has a better wide receivers, but I feel like the Jaguars have a better team now. But I just feel like Wilson isn't really producing. I mean, not Wilson, on Lawrence, and I feel like he's not gonna be a bust per se, but I think he's gonna be a mediocre NFL quarterback, and I think Wilson is gonna do very, very well. People forget this is only week 4 of his journey in the NFL, and he's gonna get it together. But I feel like with Lawrence, as long as Urban Meyer is on the team, I don't see further development for him.
And you bring up a great point there. And that kind of goes, talking about Jacksonville, but, kind of switching a topic. Speaking of Urban Meyer, to me, this trade here just further proves that Urban Meyer has no idea what he is doing in Jacksonville. C.J. Henderson was a top 10 pick last year from Florida, arguably the best corner in the draft last season. And, there was lots of rumors in the offseason. Maybe he's on a trade market. 3 games into the season, you trade him to the Carolina Panthers, and, you trade C.J. Henderson in a 5th-round pick, which obviously that's going to be a top 5 pick, in the 5th round because they're not going to be a good team because they're 0-3, to the Carolina Panthers for Dan Arnold, a tight end, and a 3rd-round pick. I mean, you look at the Carolina Panthers, I mean, they are just further proving that they're going to be a very, very nice team once J.C. Horn gets healthy, C.J. Henderson. I mean, those are 2 top 10 picks in the corners the last 2 seasons. And you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, that's 1 less player you have on your team for the next, several years who could be a big piece of your team. C.J. Henderson, including this year, potentially has 4 years on his contract if you would have, the team option. But you already trade him away. He's played 1 year and you're done with him. Trevor Lawrence has played 3 games and he's absolutely sucked, but nobody's talked about it. I mean, obviously you're not going to have Lawrence, but it just does not make sense to me. And Urban Meyer, I mean, he has no idea what he's doing. I mean, taking Travis Etienne, even though James Robinson was phenomenal last year, the most underrated running back in the NFL, in my opinion, not even debatable. I mean, signing Carlos Hyde, really a disgrace in my opinion, and really a kick in the face to James Robinson, who was phenomenal. And I mean, very questionable signings, hirings. I mean, signing Tim Tebow. I mean, you can go on and on and on with Urban Meyer and what he's done with Jacksonville, and not for not in a good way. And, 0-3 right now, I say at the absolute max, they're going to get 3 wins. That's honestly maybe even pushing it. And with the USC job open, the hire to me was horrible to begin with. Urban Meyer, I thought it should have been Eric Bieniemy, Joe Brady, or even former Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Byron Leftwich. I thought Leftwich made a lot of sense as well. It was a horrible hire, and I wouldn't be surprised if Meyer is only the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars for 1 year. Because 3 games in, I don't think anybody expected the Jaguars to be this bad. It's very shocking how bad Meyer's start has been in Jacksonville.
Well, I don't think anyone expected the Jaguars to be this bad this quickly, because remember in 2016 they made it to the AFC Championship game against the Patriots, and they had a core in place, but for some reason it just didn't work out. They had Jalen Ramsey, that Jack linebacker, but the only thing that was holding them back was a quarterback, which was Blake Bortles, and I feel like they were a long way from that. I just feel like the Jaguars are not, they're not serious towards winning. But I have to disagree with you with Urban Meyer. I think he's going to stay there for a couple of years, and then when a better option comes around, he's going to leave it.
And it's interesting with Meyer because I just feel like it was just a horrific hire in the first place. We're talking about a guy who's had health problems the past several years, leaving college football. You look at college football. College football is much easier. You look at head coaches; they'll even say it. College football is much easier to coach than the NFL. College football, you're leading boys into becoming men. And in the NFL, you're coaching men who act like they know what they're doing. Already have families and kids and stuff like that. And there might even be some players that you're coaching that might even be older than you, depending how young you are. And, they act like they might know it all and stuff like that. So when a guy who's coaching college football for years, he's had success, has health issues, much, much, much different atmosphere coaching in the NFL. And he even said it, it seems like he's coaching against Alabama every week when it's with the number 1 pick. There's so much pressure on him with the Golden Boy and Trevor Lawrence. It's interesting. And I do not see this Jaguars team be good at all. I didn't expect them to be good. Maybe 4 or 5 wins, competitive, kind of like I mentioned with the Jets. But the fact, that Trevor Lawrence struggles is not being talked about. He has just been horrible. This, team, their defense hasn't been good. They're trading top 10 picks from last year already, giving up on them, which is really shows they have no idea what they're doing. I do not see Urban Meyer, being in Jacksonville for a very long time at all. I feel like a couple years from now, maybe if not this at the end of the season, maybe the following year, Meyer's tenure in Jacksonville will already be gone, and this will be looking back a horrible hire, like it was when it was first announced.
So, in the event if they fire Urban Meyer this season, who do you think should take over?
I would feel probably just somebody on their team right now, maybe the offense coordinator or defense coordinator, because, obviously you're not going to be able to, hire some top guy, in the middle of a season. That just does not really happen. But if we're talking about towards the end of the season, to me, I feel like Joe Brady. I feel Joe Brady, Brian Daboll, the offense coordinator of the Bills, he's been a huge reason for Josh Allen's development the past over years. And I feel like those guys will be up there. I kind of mentioned Bieniemy. I really like Byron Leftwich. He's really helped, this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. He used to play for the Jaguars. His connection there. If I had to pick one, probably Brian Daboll, because he's got the best out of Josh Allen. Josh Allen's first season, they were ranked 29th in total offense. Last season, they were top 5. And Josh Allen, obviously he was an MVP candidate. Imagine what he can do with Trevor Lawrence, who has supposedly potential to be one of the best quarterbacks of all time, with ETN coming back, with James Robinson, DJ Chark, if they re-sign him. Some of these other receivers. I'd probably say Brian Daboll if Meyer were to get fired.
I would have to go with either Brian Leftwich or Eric Bieniemy. I think those two would be the perfect opportunity for them, for the team.
I don't dislike Bieniemy. I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of more biased towards Leftwich. Because, like I mentioned, from Huntington, West Virginia, that's where Marshall is. I'm a huge Marshall fan. That's where Leftwich played college at. So, any of those guys, honestly, I feel like would be a significant upgrade over Urban Meyer being the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And there's lots of surprises so far in the NFL. The Jets struggling worse than people thought. The Jaguars struggling worse than people thought. There's teams you would not expect to be 3-0 right now, kind of like the Broncos, the Raiders. And one team who has been surprising in a bad way is Kansas City Chiefs. They are 1-2 right now and last AFC West. What are your kind of thoughts towards the Chiefs right now being last in their own division?
Well, they're gonna get it together. I mean, Mahomes isn't really playing that badly. He's still slinging the ball really well. Their defense is a little bit suspect, however, but they just signed Josh Gordon to a deal, I think, yesterday, and I feel like he's gonna help the team out despite his demons. I just hope he stays there and stays in the NFL. But I wouldn't worry about the Chiefs. I think they're gonna get it together. Mahomes is gonna still sling the ball well, and I feel like they're gonna win the division. I mean, the Raiders being 3-0 is great, but I feel like they're gonna fall off at the end of the year because this is John Gruden we're talking about, and John Gruden has a habit of choking away leads in big games. But going back to the Chiefs, I feel like they're gonna get it together. I'm not really too worried about them.
I'm not really worried about the Chiefs, but I am interested in this because I know a couple of guys who like the Raiders and Chargers and stuff, and we kind of talked. The AFC West is easily the most underrated division in the NFL. And you mentioned the Raiders. They're 3-0. The Broncos are also 3-0, which is very. It's one of those stats that are very deceiving because the Broncos are 3-0, but their opponents are 0-9.
Exactly.
You look at the Raiders. I feel like it's interesting because the Raiders do this crap every single year. I mean, last year they were 5-3. They defeated the Chiefs the first meeting, and they almost beat them their second meeting. They were 5-3 to start off, and they ended the year, I believe, 8-8, and they fired their defense coordinator midway through the season, because they were that desperate to try to get a fix, and obviously that did not happen. And start off great, and they suck. It seems like the Raiders do it every single year. The Broncos, I think they have potential to be good, but just you don't know with them because the teams they played have just not been good at all. I mean, you can't get worse than 0-9 with your opponents. And then you look at the Chargers. So Chargers, to me, I would say are the biggest threat to winning the AFC West against the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still going to pick the Chiefs, but I do think it's closer than people think because you look at it this way. The Chiefs are one muffed punt against the Cleveland Browns from being 0-3. You look at the Chargers, a very questionable, sack call against the Cowboys.
Oh yeah, that was bad.
From 3-0. So you're looking at that standpoint, literally one play from each thing. I mean, we're looking at a 3-0 Chargers team, a 3-0 Broncos, a 3-0 Raiders, to an 0-3 Chiefs team. I feel like the Chiefs, I mean, I don't think it's time to panic yet, obviously. But I do feel like this AFC West division is tougher than people think. And I don't think it's going to be as easy for them to win their division like people think. But ultimately, I still expect them to win the AFC West. But I think it'll be pretty close. But I don't think it's time to panic yet for Kansas City. Mm-hmm. But don't be surprised if the Chargers make it extremely close to end up winning the AFC West.
What do you think about the Josh Gordon move?
It's interesting because, I mean, we have literally seen this, it seems like, for years and years and years. He'll reinstate, and then, he'll get suspended again. I don't hate it. I don't love it. But I feel like it might be a little too early type of deal. Maybe, Gordon just gets reinstated, and the Chiefs are 1-2. They're struggling. This is the first time they're last in the division since 2015. Mm-hmm. So they're just looking for that spark that I wouldn't call it desperate. But I would say maybe if they were 3-0, I would not expect them to make this move, if that makes sense. Since they're not playing as good, they try to hurry and sign this guy in Gordon who has tons of potential, but he's just unfortunately hasn't played the past several years. Mm-hmm. But if they were 3-0, I wouldn't expect them to make this because this is one of those moves you don't expect great teams to make. You would kind of see teams who are kind of maybe struggling a little bit, trying to get that extra boost. Since they're struggling to get. I don't love it. I don't hate it. But I'm excited to see him definitely with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, the problem with the Chiefs last year was the offensive line. I mean, the Buccaneers basically exposed it during the Super Bowl. but I feel like the offensive line has been better. But I still get the feeling that Mahomes is still running for his life and throwing like no look passes. See, that's another thing with Mahomes. He likes to showboat a lot, and he likes to do no look passes, and that's not gonna fly in the NFL because a lot of players are gonna figure that out. And to me, I think he needs to stop doing that because if he keeps doing that, then he's gonna cost his team many games, and I feel like he needs to stop doing that.
I completely agree. I mean, obviously, Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You can make a case he is the best, but I feel like at times he gets a little too cocky, like you just said. But it's interesting with the Chiefs. I fully expect them to end up winning the AFC West, but I think it's going to be close between them and the LA Chargers. And another surprising situation here on Sunday was the Rams dominant performance over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I wasn't surprised the Rams won this game because I feel, in my opinion, the Rams were the biggest threat to the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl. But I was surprised at just how one-sided this game was. Looking at the Rams, last season they beat the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football with Jared Goff. The Rams last season won a playoff game against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks against the quarterback. I can't even remember his name. I think he was playing in the AAF or whatever that league was called a year or two before that playoff game. And Jared Goff has thrown for over 4,000 passing yards. The Rams have been to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff.
Mm-hmm.
And Jared Goff, to me, is not even a top 20, 25 quarterback. Then you get Matthew Stafford, who's been the most underrated quarterback for years and years and years.
Because he was playing with the Lions, that's why.
Exactly. And if he was with the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Patriots, even though he does not even have a playoff win, in my opinion, I think he would be Hall of Famer to play for one of those three teams the past 12 years or so. He is extremely underrated. And when you have an offensive guru in Sean McVay pairing him with one of the most underrated quarterbacks of our generation in Stafford, I mean, you cannot expect them. I mean, they're going to be phenomenal. Cooper Kupp's been fantastic. Robert Woods has been good. Mm-hmm. I was just very surprised at how one-sided this was. To me, I feel like, obviously you got to take the Rams seriously because, they are phenomenal. But I really did not expect them to play this good. I kind of, expected them to get their best football, maybe like week 9, week 10, the midway through to kind of get more familiarity with, Stafford and this offense. But I was extremely impressed with the Rams. And honestly, I don't think this really shows anything. Like, we shouldn't be worried about the Buccaneers or any of that, obviously. I just feel like the Rams played a phenomenal game, and the Buccaneers really couldn't do anything about it. The Rams, they are, for real, and in my opinion, without a doubt, easily the biggest threat to being a Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl against the opposed to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, I agree. I think the Rams are my contender to win the Super Bowl. But as for the Buccaneers, their defense is really, really insane. In terms of, their secondary is being tested. So they recently had a meeting with Richard Sherman earlier this morning in an attempt to convince him to join the team. And that's the only Achilles heel for the Buccaneers. And I feel that that's the only fault that they have. But, it just feels like the Buccaneers are still the favorites to win the Super Bowl because of Tom Brady. But I just feel like the Rams, if they could beat them in the NFC title game or in the Super Bowl, they're going to beat them.
Yeah, the Rams are just phenomenal. They have two of the top 5 best defensive players in the league, and obviously Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Phenomenal offense. Even with Cam Akers out for the year, they're able to have one of the best offenses in the league. This is very interesting. The Rams, in my opinion, heading into the year, I had the Rams and the Browns in the Super Bowl, and I had the Rams ended up winning. And I fully expect to see the Rams, in the Super Bowl as of right now. And, the Rams are 3-0. There's a couple other teams who are 3-0 as well. The Rams, Cardinals, Panthers, Raiders, and Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
So who, in your opinion, who is the best 3-0 team and who is the worst 3-0 team? Excuse me. Yeah. 3-0.
The worst 3-0 team I have to say is the Broncos. As you alluded to earlier, their opponents were 0-9. And unless they beat somebody with a winning record, then I'm not going to take them seriously. The worst 0-3 team, this might be a little bit of a shocker, but I would have to say the Carolina Panthers because nobody expected them to start 3-0. I mean, yeah, it's just what it is. And Sam Darnold is just playing lights out football. But I think the defense is a little bit suspect. I think Sam Darnold is going to revert back to his old ways. And yeah, those are my 3-0 worst and best.
I would say the best. I want to keep it, on the Rams. It's just hard for me to bet against this Rams team, especially at a phenomenal performance against the defending Super Bowl champs and the Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just overall, you look at these teams: the Rams, the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Raiders, and the Broncos. They, without a doubt, have the best defensive player in Donald. They have the second best defensive player in Jalen Ramsey. They have the best quarterback in Stafford. They have the best wide receiver duo, in my opinion, in Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Definitely one of the most underrated wide receiver duos in the NFL. The worst to me, I would have to agree, the Broncos. I feel like they do have a ton of potential. I've said that for the past couple of years. You look at the wide receiver group: Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. I mean, Tim Patrick. Those are very underrated receivers. They have lots of injuries in the wide receiver group with Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. He was announced that he's out for the year the other day. Mm-hmm. They have some nice guys on defense as well, like Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, Justin Simmons, Patrick Surtain, Kyle Fuller. Like this Broncos team, I don't think they're bad. Like, I do think they are a possible playoff contender. But until I see the teams that they've, I want to see them play teams who are at least average or, better. Teams like, the Dolphins or the Patriots. If they can beat teams like that, I would respect them much more. And I feel like then I would kind of, maybe take the Broncos more seriously once they win against these more, better teams in the league. And, we kind of talked about the best and worst 3-0 team. So in your opinion, going to the 0-3 teams, the 0-3 teams are the Jets, Colts, Jaguars, Giants, and Lions. Who is the best 0-3 team and who is the worst 0-3 team?
Oh, man. They're all so bad, actually. But, so I will have to go with the best 0-3 team. It might have to be the Lions because the Lions have actually played close games throughout their 3-week stretch. I like what Jared Goff is doing. I mean, remember that game against the 49ers? They literally almost came back from it. I think it was 41-33. As for the worst 0-3 team, believe it or not, I will have to go with the New York Giants because the Giants they're pretty much bad. The quarterback position, their wide receivers are thinning out. The defense is it's meh. But I would have to go with the Giants.
It's really interesting because I mean you could really debate both of these in the best and worst 0-3 teams. The best 0-3 team in my opinion, I'm going to have to say the Colts because you look at the Colts. I mean they have a playoff roster. Just Carson Wentz is made of glass and he always gets hurt. But I mean the Colts, they were my pick to end up winning the AFC South. Like I feel like they are capable of winning their own division. The fact that they're 0-3 right now, regardless whether it's Carson Wentz or Jacob Eason starting for them, that's just unacceptable. I mean, they without a doubt have the best roster of these teams. And even if you put Jacob Eason as a starting quarterback for the Colts, I feel like they would still beat some of these teams who are 0-3. The worst 0-3 team to me. This is. I mean, in my opinion, I feel like it's a 3-way between the Giants, Jets, and Jaguars. I'm going to have to say the Jaguars. Just, I mean, I did not expect great things from them, but just playing absolutely horrible against the Houston Texans. Lawrence, bad coaching, trading C.J. Henderson away. It's like. I feel like it has to be the Jaguars, and the Jets would be up there just because they're inconsistent offensive line play. And the Giants would definitely be up there because I mean, there's no reason the Giants should be 0-3 right now. But with the Jaguars, you didn't expect great things, but I mean, nobody expected them to be this bad. Like, I cannot believe how bad the Jaguars are right now, especially Trevor Lawrence. So I would say the Jaguars are the worst 0-3 team. I'd say the best 0-3 team is the Indianapolis Colts.
Those are good choices.
So, question here. Let's see here. What do you think Wyatt will kind of sign? We kind of talked about this earlier. If he doesn't show up at Dynamite this week, in my opinion, I think there's a strong possibility he will end up signing with WWE. But if I had to pick, I think he goes to AEW.
Same here. I think he goes to AEW. I think he's going to thrive down there, actually, because there's like so many creative freedom in there. And yeah, I think he's going to go to AEW. He's going to be a lot happier down there. And I hope for the best. He goes to AEW.
It's interesting. I mean, you bring up the creative freedom part. I mean, we've seen that before with some of these wrestlers, things that will not really fly in today's WWE. Malachi Black, for example. I mean, it was kind of similar to what he was at A-Lister Black, but you just look at the creative freedom in AEW. I feel like that's a big reason why some of these guys leave WWE to go to AEW.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like he's gonna actually make a big impact tomorrow night. I don't know who's going to attack. I mean, who knows? He might join either the Dark Order or join Malachi Black.
It's interesting with the Dark Order. I feel like the Dark Order teasing and splitting up the past month or so might have to do with Bray Wyatt, debuting tomorrow. I feel like that does make quite a bit of sense, and especially with I don't even know if his contract is up yet or not, but I feel like with them teasing the Dark Order, maybe they have Bray Wyatt come out, and with that being in Rochester, that's where Brody Lee was from. Maybe that does make sense. I wouldn't be surprised either way where he goes. It's just so interesting because there's none of the fin of he's going to AEW or he's going to WWE. And I know I said earlier, but this is what just makes it so interesting with this signing compared to others. This, with others, it was kind of lopsided. They'll go to AEW, but then you look at the fact that Alexa Bliss is still kind of in that fiendish type character she was for the past year with Bray Wyatt. It's very interesting. Cannot wait for tomorrow night's episode. And I have one final, kind of quick question here. Okay. Kind of talk about the NFL, going back to the NFL. Right now, who would you say is the best team in the NFL is, and why?
Oh, no, that has to be the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, defense is playing well. Offense is firing on all cylinders. And I would go with the Rams. The Rams are I think they're my favorites to win the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree. The Rams really, even the people who thought they were going to be good, like myself, Sunday, had the potential to beat the Buccaneers. They obliterate them. Lopsided win against the defending champs and Tom Brady. I mean, the Rams right now, obviously you expect them to be good. I don't think anybody really expected them to be this good this early. I felt like, you look at some of these teams, for example, you look at the Seahawks. Last season, they were phenomenal. Russell Wilson was the MVP candidate, but their defense sucked. The second half of the season, Russell Wilson sucked. And their defense was phenomenal, but Wilson sucked. I mean, they had the first half that was phenomenal. Second half, they were just bad. The fact that this is Matthew Stafford's third game with the LA Rams, and they're, blowing out the defending champs and the Buccaneers. This even first proof even more. The Rams are serious, and they're the biggest threats to win the Super Bowl. That is not the Buccaneers. It's going to be very interesting this week, with some of the matchups. Obviously there's Brady against the Patriots. We talked about Lawrence. It'll be interesting to see how many picks he throws against the Bengals. I'm going to say 2. Dynamite tomorrow. I would say there's a strong chance we see, Bray Wyatt in a AEW TV tomorrow. We've talked about so much. Where's Bray Wyatt going to go? Your awesome experience at AEW Grand Slam. Zach Wilson struggles. Trevor Lawrence struggles. CJ Henderson being traded to the Carolina Panthers. The Chiefs last place in the AFC West. The Rams dominant victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The best and worst 3-0 team. the best and worst 0-3 team, and the best team in the NFL right now. We both agreed in the we both agreed in the LA Rams. So can you kind of tell some of the listeners who can follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Instagram at Kenny the Sports Guy. Again, on Instagram at Kenny the Sports Guy. And on Twitter at Kenny_sports. Again, on Twitter at Kenny_sports.
Definitely put that in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to follow me, the Sports Dude Hines Show, on Instagram and Twitter. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time on the Sports Dude Hines Show.